I'm Clay Newman. This is the Zoo Review.
This week we're going to be talking about a truly American beast, the American bison. This creature is the official mammal of the United States of America. If you didn't know that fact, you weren't alone. It did not get that designation until 2016 when Obama named it such. Frankly, I'm surprised Trump hasn't rolled that back yet and named our national mammal the pig. These individuals were filmed at Golden Gate Park in lovely San Francisco. Back in the early 1900s, there used to be a lot of animals in Golden Gate Park. The bison would roam freely along with elk, goats, even a couple of loose bears. But the ones that are there today are descendants of a birthday present to then Mayor Dianne Feinstein by her incredibly wealthy husband, because San Francisco is, of course, a little bit liberal, but mostly a capitalist hellscape. Now, they were originally called Tatanka by the Dakota tribe, but when white folks showed up, they were given the Latin name Bison, Bison, Bison. Now, the American bison is not a buffalo. Buffaloes reside in Asia and in Africa. They're about the same size, but they got much smaller heads and smoother fur. They have thick coats perfect for a prairie winter, and when spring rolls around, they shed those bad boys. They roll around on the ground, tearing loose clumps of hair at a time. Honestly, kind of looks like an unkempt Rastafari, and it's losing them a couple adorableness points. That said, the calves are called red dogs, which is fun, and they are pretty adorable. Plus, they all have that concerned side-eye thing that bovines like to do. That's fun to look at. In this category, I'm going to give them 11 points. What the bison lacks in adorableness, it makes up for in badassness. It is the largest land mammal that is native to North America. That sounds like a lot of qualifiers, but it's still pretty impressive. Males could be over 12 feet long, stand over 6 feet high, and weigh over a ton. And despite that, they got a top speed of 40 miles per hour. Combine that with their giant head and 2-foot-long horns, that's a scary creature coming at you. Unlike most lumpy animals out there, that lump on the back of the American bison is not fat, but rather pure muscle. They need it to take their giant-ass head and dig turrets in the snow during the winter. They have very few natural predators. Like most animals, they'll lose a baby to wolves or bears every once in a while. It happens, but nothing's fucking with an adult American bison. In this category, they got 18 points. The American bison has a decent-sized brain in that big old head of theirs. They are, of course, a herd animal, but those herds do have some social complexity. The males don't travel with the herd year-round. Most of the time, they just go in little bachelor packs until it is baby-making season, and then they join up with the females and the young. They do have excellent hearing and smell, but the eyesight is not so good, and because of that, they can be easily scared into starting a stampede. That, frankly, costs you intelligence points. Back in the olden day, they used to travel. Herds, sometimes hundreds of thousands deep, would cross the entirety of the Great Plains in search for water. These days, not so much. They communicate physically with their tail. If it's low and swishing around, that's a docile-ass bison. But if that tail is standing up, look out, it's about to charge. The only problem with this system is that the tail, relatively small, and its head is huge. So if that bison's facing you, you're not going to get a warning. The biggest thing they have going for them in this category is the fact that, like most other animals, the males will physically compete when it comes to breeding season. But unlike most animals, they don't injure each other while doing so. That's pretty impressive. Human beings can barely figure that out. In this category, they got a score of 14 points. Bovines and humans have always had a special relationship. They were one of the first animals that we ever hunted, and of course, cattle was some of the first creatures we domesticated. Now, while the bison of the plains weren't domesticated necessarily, they were crucial to entire tribes of human beings' survival. One species of animal would provide food, clothing, shelter, tools, an entire way of life for an entire people. And that's not to say that Native Americans' handling of them wasn't brutal necessarily. Before the white man showed up with horses, Native Americans decided to take out buffalo in a little thing called buffalo jumps. That's when they cleverly herd this group of docile creatures right the fuck off a cliff. The thing is, the destruction of the American bison was not simply symbolic of our treatment of Native American people, it was a direct attack on them. General Sheridan, who looks like a villain in every single Western, was the man in charge of America's war against the original Americans. He told the government that the best strategy to fight the Plains Indians was not to fight them necessarily, but to starve them out by taking away the one species that helped this people exist. They had no force but to drive them out of the plains. Many of those people killing buffalo en masse were given both arms and stipends by the government to do so. In this category, I want to give it more points, but apparently it didn't work out so well. Your special skill of being integral to human beings, it's worth 12 points. The American bison is officially listed as near threatened. I'll be honest, that seems like we're kind of letting white people off the hook on that one, considering that in the 1500s, there's an estimated 30 to 50 million bison roaming across the plains of North America. Now, around the 1830s, the white man started moving west, and they did what white man does best, fucking murder and everything that already lived there. Once the Continental Railroad was finished in the 1860s, it was pretty much all over for the old American bison. Not only were honkies moving across the country in mass, but these motherfuckers were just shooting bison from outside of trains for fun. In 1870, there was an estimated 2 million bison killed. Between 1872 and 1874, there was an average of 5,000 buffalo killed a day. That's almost 5.5 million in that 3-year period. People were massacring these animals. Buffalo Bill didn't get his nickname because he liked looking at buffaloes. He killed thousands of those motherfuckers. As of 2020, we think there's about 500,000 of these animals alive on this planet. That's great news. The problem is, a vast majority of them live on ranches owned by ranchers waiting to be eaten by human beings. That's hardly a promotion. The biggest group of wild bison out there are in Yellowstone Park. American bison have lived there since prehistoric times, so it's beautiful to see them there now, but their population's only around 5,000. That's the biggest group in public lands. 5,000. There used to be 30 to 50 million. In this category, I'm not going to give it a 0 because, frankly, they are pretty delicious. And I think if we let them go completely extinct, that is very much admitting how evil the white man is. We don't like to go full evil. We like to pull back the reins a little bit towards the end. In this category, they've got 6 points. Well, the scores are in and the results are tallied for our national mammal, and the American bison didn't do too bad. It cracked the top 10 with a score of 61 points. That puts it right there in 8th place. Now, just think about it. The only thing holding this animal back was, to be fair, gross clumpy hair, but also the fact that we murdered most of them. It's a cool animal in every sense, except for the fact that they're not here anymore. My name's Clay Newman. You have a lovely rest of your day. Goodbye.